Today is a great day for a couple of reasons. One, I'm alive, and two, I'm finally finished with my do-it-yourself granite kitchen countertop project. When I began this project, the kitchen looked like this. And here's how it looks today. Overall, I'm happy with the amount of time and money that I spent on this project, but there were a few hiccups along the way, and I'll go over that in a couple of minutes. Unlike a lot of YouTube videos on do-it-yourself projects that make everything look perfect and it makes the person look like Superman who's doing the work, I'm going to try to show you some of the mistakes that I made, some of the things that I could have done in a different way to save some time or money. That way, if you try to attempt a project like this, you'll have a heads up. The first thing I want to do is talk about the backsplash. When I bought the backsplash, I didn't think that I would need more backsplash length than countertop length. I'm probably the only one that would make that mistake because I get caught up in the moment and don't think. I figured I needed 2 9-foot pieces of granite, get 2 9-foot pieces of backsplash, right? Not the case. Because of these little guys here, it takes more backsplash than it does countertop length. So I ended up having to make this piece of backsplash out of the sink cutout. And all that is gone over in depth in previous videos. You can see part 1 right here and kind of settle in and watch the whole series from start to finish if you care to do that. So that was mistake number 1 that I can think of, is calculate your backsplash correctly. Mistake number 2 also had to do with the backsplash. What I did on this long wall right here is I just put a full length of backsplash right here, and then I cut a piece here and butted the two together. I didn't cut these two ends, which I probably should have. See, this is finished from the factory with a beveled edge and it's polished. So when you put these together, it is very noticeable. You can see that that joint because these edges are beveled. So if I would have cut just a little bit off both of these pieces, it would have came out a little less noticeable on that crack, but it was up by the time I thought about it, and I wasn't going to pry this piece off just for that. Somebody can set a nice little statuette or a fruit bowl right there, and that crack will just disappear. Boom. So that was a little bit of a mistake. Another mistake that I made that I don't know, it might have been unavoidable, is I don't know if you can see it because I filled this with epoxy, but this corner doesn't match up exactly. So the only way I could have remedied that is to just measure 10 times. You know, just be sure that when you're cutting these angle pieces, do it very carefully, because this is a very precise seam, and I think I got lucky that it came out as well as it did, but just be sure to do this seam very carefully if you have any seams. So that's, I think, about all the mistakes that I can think of that I made. This piece right here, since I had to cut this piece, this edge wasn't finished. So I had to polish this and cut a piece to go right here. And as you can see, there's a very noticeable line right here, and that's because I cut this piece right here just freehand with a circular saw, and I didn't use a guide because I was in a hurry, and you can see it's a little bit wavy here. So if I would have used a guide or had a wet saw maybe to make a nice straight cut, I could have made this a lot tighter of a joint, and it would have looked more like the factory joint, which you can hardly even see. But I made sure to put this side away from the entryway. That way people wouldn't gravitate to that when they walk in the room for the first time. But it's a good 10-footer. I mean, you can't see it from far away, but it's just something to watch. This was actually kind of a complicated kitchen for me because I had to do this edge right here. I had a corner here to cut. The easiest kitchen, and the one I would recommend you consider Granite with, is if you just have a straight walk-through kitchen with counters on both sides, so you don't have to do any angle cuts, you don't have to do any polished edges or anything like that. That would be just ideal for a first-time Granite installer. But this is the kitchen that I had to deal with, so I decided to give it a try. So overall, I'm happy. Those are the mistakes that I made. Let's talk about cost, because that's kind of a big factor in this. If you'll notice, not only do I have new countertops, but I also have a new sink. I also have a range hood, and I even went ahead and did the whole ball of wax. I painted the room, and I did that because there was some ugly old fruity wallpaper back here, and I mean fruity in pictures of fruit, nothing else. So I'm not saying anything right there, so no negative comments on that, please. So I removed that wallpaper, and the sheetrock behind it was good, but the paint was all yucky behind it because the wallpaper had just come off, and I had gotten the wallpaper wet and peeled it off, and I needed to do something behind there because the sheetrock looked so bad. I thought about painting just the backsplash, trying to match it to the existing paint of the room, which is kind of hit and miss in my experience. I can never get a paint to match exactly to an existing color, and for that reason I went down to the home improvement store, and they have the mist tint paints that people buy the tinted paints in a color they want, and then decide they don't want it and never pick it up, so they sell that paint at a discount. So I picked up this kind of a mauve gray color and just painted the whole kitchen in that, with the exception of some white on this bump out here and white on the ceiling to kind of brighten it up because the walls are kind of a dark color. So I'll kind of keep the cost of those things separate from the cost of the granite itself. So let's get down to numbers. I'll put my accounting hat on right here. The granite itself, granite slab, $250.78. Silicone, $11. Sandpaper, $59. That's $59 for sandpaper. Is a lot of money for sandpaper, but have you ever tried to sand rock before? That's the reason. I bought some adhesive for gluing the backsplash. I bought a couple of circular saw blades, a continuous rim blade, which I wasn't happy with, and a turbo blade, which worked much better for cutting the granite. $30 and $37 respectively for those. And then I bought the epoxy for this seam right here. And when it was all said and done, just the countertop materials, drum roll, I can't play drums, $404.03 for the countertop and backsplash and all of the materials to install it. I already had the circular saw, so if you don't have one of those, that's $100 or whatever they cost. Now, as far as the other little upgrades for the kitchen, the hood was $44. I replaced the microwave that was here because it was outdated and didn't work. I still have it, if you want it. You pick up. And I bought the sink. I stepped up on the sink. This is a tectonic, that's like Earth's crust. Tectonite maybe. tectonic plates. Anyway, it's plastic. It's a plastic sink. It's made by Frankie, and I think it goes pretty good with the granite. This was $192.87. As I mentioned, the paint was about $30 with tax and everything. I had to buy the mortar for behind here, and that was about $10. Oh, and the electrical things. I replaced all of the electrical switches and outlets in this room, and that is a secret in making a room look better, and it's cheap. Replace the outlets and switches and wall plates in a room, it'll wake it up, and it's cheap. You know how much everything costs? All the plugs, all the switches, all the plates, $23.09. That's cheap. It takes a little while to install them, but it just makes the room look nicer. So for everything unrelated to the countertop, but things that I felt were necessary for this kitchen to really spruce it up and make it look its best, $300.03 on the nose. So the grand total to bring this kitchen up to its current state, which isn't perfect, the cabinets are still kind of old, the dishwasher has a little bit to be desired in the aesthetics department, as does the floor, but grand total for everything for this project, $704.06. Now that's a bargain in my book. Less than $1,000 to have granite countertops, new sink, new paint, a nice looking kitchen. That's a deal. Now as far as time spent on the job, I didn't keep a really accurate tally, but I'm thinking I spent between 10 and 15 hours on the job total. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's definitely something that you can get done in a short enough amount of time that you can have it finished before the wife really starts coming down on you because of how long it's been since the sink worked. So it passes muster there on the domestic front. I hope you've learned something from the videos. Hope they've been entertaining. Nice sweeping view for the exit. Just imagine some easygoing saxophone music. Sorry, gotta clear the spit valve. Thanks for watching.